الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to first thank the organizers of tonight's program in celebration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of course we're putting together this program and for inviting me to be here, and I thank all of you for taking the time also to come and attend. Now, of course, everyone knows we should praise and celebrate the Prophet ﷺ every single day, but I think most of us may not do that, and we won't do that. So it's important to have special occasions like this to do so. As humans, we know that we need to have special times to commemorate special relationships, right? That's why Hallmark makes Mother's Day, Father's Day, anniversaries, and all kinds of special days. So while we should certainly love our family members every day and show them every day, but given our lazy and human nature and selfish nature, it's important to have those special times of the year or month set aside to remind ourselves to do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, this is Surah Al-Dhariyat, number 51, in Ayah 55, فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So verily, reminders, remembrances benefit the believers. So we should have a special time to renew and recommit to all of our relationships with all of our loved ones, especially Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so that's what we're here to do tonight, and I'm really happy that I can be with you to do that. Now I know some of our dear guests who will be speaking shortly are going to speak more about love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but just since I'm first, I wanted to set the stage with just one example of one hadith of why loving the Prophet ﷺ is so important. So in a hadith related by Anas, the Prophet ﷺ said what means, "None of you will believe until I am more beloved to him than his children, his father, and all people." So this hadith tells us that loving him is an essential matter of our iman, our basic belief. So we need to strive to attain that love. Now, how should we do that? It was so easy in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because his companions saw him, they lived with him, they went to battle with him. But we shouldn't despair of reaching the level that they reached, because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah that those in my community with the strongest love for me are those who will come after me. Meaning who? Us, the people in generations who don't know him personally by sight. We haven't seen him, we haven't lived with him, but we love him even though we have never seen him. So there's many ways that we could try to attain this love and increase our love. But unfortunately, I only have 20 minutes, so I can't discuss all of them tonight with you. But for example, we can learn about his seerah, his life, his character. It will help us know him as the most perfect of humanity and khayr al-bariyah, the best of creation. We should even learn about his physical description. I don't think a lot of people think about this. We always, for example, imagine Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam as, the most beautiful of prophets, of people. But there is a hadith related by Anas that Allah did not send a prophet except with a beautiful face and voice, and your prophet is the most beautiful of them in face and voice. And for example, another hadith, Yusuf alayhi salam was given half of beauty, and I was given all of it. So there's some really beautiful things to learn even about his physical beauty, not to mention his character, but it helps us to imagine him in front of us. And it's easier to love someone when you have a picture of him in your mind. We should also try to emulate those good characteristics that he had and obey him and follow his sunnah. Another way is to recite poetry in praise of him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we're going to have our dear brother Muhammad Ali later on in the program reciting from one of the most famous of those poems, Qasida al-Burda from Imam al-Busayri, and there will be an explanation of that poem later, but it's one of the most famous qasidas. It's still recited all around the world and memorized and sang in congregation. And doing what we're doing tonight also, having these gatherings of praise and remembrance. But I think the one thing that may quite possibly be one of the easiest things that we can do in certain ways, and in certain ways maybe the hardest to increase our love, is abundantly invoking peace and blessings, salat and salam upon the Prophet ﷺ. This is really a great treasure, and many of us are depriving ourselves of great benefits and great gifts when we are negligent in doing it. Now, we've already heard twice, and I'm going to repeat it because it's such an important ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. Verily, Allah and His angels send blessings upon the Prophet. O you who believe, send blessings and salutations of peace upon him. Now, there's a few interesting things about this ayah that I just want to mention before we move on. First, linguistically, starting with inna, which in Arabic is used for emphasis. Most certainly, Allah and His angels are doing this. And also the ayah uses the present tense of the verb, yusallun. So this denotes a constant action, something done continuing for perpetuity. It never ends. But second and most importantly about this ayah is that it's a command. Ya ayyuhallazina, O you who believe, Sallu alayhi. Sallu is the command form. So it's a command for the believers to do this and to join in an action that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself is performing and also the angels. So what greater honor could there be for us than to join in an action that Allah and His angels are doing continuously? And obviously, I don't need to compare how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the angels do that with how we do that. But Allah connects them together in this ayah to show the importance for us to be doing this. Now, with reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's salawat, what does it mean? We mean praise in the meaning of praise and giving Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reverence and honor and position in rank among the prophets, among mankind, and sending His mercy upon him. As for the angels, in the meaning of their making dua and asking for forgiveness. But for us, what does it mean to say, and I'm just going to use the words salat and salam, and we all know what we mean, sending blessings and invoking peace upon him. We are honoring him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by asking for the mercy and blessings of Allah and peace of Allah to be showered upon him. Now, with respect to the excellence and virtues of doing this, and there's many of them, but I just want to start with two hadith, both related on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Whosoever recites salat on me one time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall recite salat on him 10 times. So do much or little, it's your choice. And whosoever recites salat on me 10 times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends 100 mercies. If 100 times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends 1,000 mercies. And whosoever does more, I shall be an intercessor and a witness for them on the day of judgment. And the angels are seeking blessings and forgiveness, asking forgiveness for the person who is engaged in that. So this is one of Allah's mercies to us. We are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do something, and of course He is the only one who could do such a thing. But then He even rewards us for doing that. In contrast, failing to do salawat leads to hard-heartedness and estrangement from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said, the real miser is the one who, upon hearing my name mentioned, does not send salat upon me. In another hadith, Angel Jibreel mentioned to him the curse of wretchedness, humiliation, disgrace upon those who do not. And this is in the same hadith that mentions that same curse for the people who, for example, leave fasting of the month of Ramadan. So we see the seriousness of neglecting salawat, at the very least, when his name, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is mentioned. And most scholars agree that it should be mentioned every time his name is mentioned. We would repeat the salawat. And no particular forms or words are necessary, but we should do salat and salam both, if we can. And all of us know the most common ones and the most virtuous ones that we do, for example, in our daily prayers. And there are many shorter versions. And it's highly recommended to add Sayyidina before his name, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now I know there's a difference of opinion about that in adding that, for example, within the daily prayers. But I'm not going to discuss that, but just please follow the rulings of your madhab with respect to that. But if one is outside the prayers, one should also try to be in a clean place, in a pure place, and be on wudu. But if we can't attain that at all times of the day, which is of course impossible, let's not leave it just for those reasons. Now, some scholars have actually made compiled collections of salawat from various hadith of different strengths, and some from collected reports of other righteous people and scholars. And I want to share with you a story about Imam Shafi'i. There are several reports of people seeing him in dreams and asking him, "What has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala done with you?" To which he would answer variously, "He has forgiven me, granted me paradise, honored me." But upon being asked by what thing was it that you did by which you attained this rank, and of course we all know how much he has done and contributed to our deen and the preservation of our deen. So he could have said anything. But he answered because of his writing and recitation of a particular salah on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I want to read it for you, and if any of you want to take note, I will repeat it, and then I will do the translation. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad, adada ma dhakarahu al-dhakirun, wa adada ma ghafala an dhikrihi al-ghafilun. Okay, let me repeat it. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad, adada ma dhakarahu al-dhakirun, wa adada ma ghafala an dhikrihi al-ghafilun. So, blessings upon our Master Muhammad as many times as the people of remembrance remember him, and as many times as the people of negligence neglect to remember him. Imagine how much that is. It covers everything. So it's a beautiful salawat that all of us can learn. It's not too long, inshallah, and there are many others. And I want to mention one more collection, also very famous, the La'il al-Khairat. And this is still read all over the Muslim world today. Imam al-Jazuli from Morocco in the 13th century compiled this. He was a righteous man and spiritual guide. One day he went to make wudu from a well, but he could not find any way to get the water up. So a girl saw him and she said, "Oh, you are that one that everybody's talking about? And you can't even get the water up from the well?" So she came down and spat in the water, and the water became overflowing from the well. After he made wudu, he begged her to tell him how did she reach this rank. And she said, by the abundance of sending salawat upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereupon Imam al-Jazuli vowed to compile this blessed work. And I happen to know it's translated in Urdu, if people would like to obtain that. Some recommended and beneficial times for salawat, of course we can do them anytime, but at both ends of the day, the morning and the evening, many people take a word of this, like a habit of doing it, a particular number every morning and every evening, when entering and leaving the masjid, for example, after the adhan, following our daily prayers. Another important time to do this is at the beginning and ending of our du'as, any of our supplications that we make to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after we praise Him and invoke Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send salat and salam on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because Allah is generous, and so He will answer our call for Him to send blessings and mercy on the Prophet. So what about what's in between that, our du'a, our supplication? Allah would not like to leave that unanswered while answering the beginning and the end. So it's a beautiful way to always ask for our dua in between. When going to sleep, having trouble sleeping, or forgetting hadith or anything, at times of worries and difficulties, it will help relieve anxieties and dispel the grief, and especially on Fridays. Many specific hadith about extra virtues and salawat on Fridays. For example, someone who does it 80 times on Fridays, Allah forgives 80 years of sin. Many of us won't even reach 80 years. So subhanAllah, that's all of our life of sin. In another version, it's guaranteed the intercession of the Prophet ﷺ. Or 100 times, Allah will take care of 100 of his needs. Or 1,000 times, he will not die before seeing his place in paradise, inshallah. So we should strive to be regular in doing this more. And we can even be practical. We can fill all our empty time with it. It's very easy to do. We just need our tongues and to think of doing it. Many of us spend hours daily driving in the car, waiting in offices, waiting for this or that, doing chores, cooking, whatever it is we're doing. But every moment we can make it count. And we should be mindful of what we're saying, not just with the tongue, but thinking about the meaning. And also expressing that love in our actions. I want to mention just some other benefits and what we will gain by increasing our salawat. On the Day of Judgment, for example, a person's salawat will be light going before him on the sirat and save us from the terrors of that day. Those who recite a lot will also be in the throne, the shade of the throne, on the Day of Judgment. People will come to the hawd, the pool of the Prophet ﷺ, and he doesn't know them except he will know them by their abundance of salawat upon him. People like us that he's never met in person. It's a purification, forgiveness of our sins, give us lightness of heart and removal of the heaviness of worries and difficulties. A means to have our need fulfilled, and for those of little means may be considered sadaqah. In sum, our salawat will be a great mercy for us, both while we are alive now and when we are dead. And finally, our salat upon him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is shown and conveyed to him and reaches him from wherever we are. And he returns everyone back upon us. Exactly how, of course, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, and there are hadith about this. But these are matters of the ghaib, and we don't need to ask how. But knowing this, don't we want him to know us by our salat upon him? Like when we meet someone once and we say hello or twice, they may forget us, but not if we call upon them every day. So we don't want him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to forget us. And the more we love someone, the more we talk about them. So reciting much is a sign of how much we love him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and a way to show gratefulness for the favors he has bestowed upon us, most importantly, being the messenger to bring us our deen. He, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, said, the nearest of people to me on the Day of Judgment will be those who recited the most salawat on me. So I ask Allah to help all of us, and myself first, to be committed and consistent with doing this. And I just remind you and myself of the general principle that doing something consistently, even if it's small, is better than leaving everything or trying to do too much and not being able to sustain it. So let's start with some small commitment we can each make to ourselves starting from tonight. And I pray that Allah increase our ability to do this and our love for doing this, and to ultimately deepen our love for Him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, with every invocation. Jazakumullah khairan.